You're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. I want to talk to you tonight about science and the Bible. This article stems from an article published in prophecynewswatch.com. Ingenuity Films continues to conduct research around the world, uncovering unprecedented evidence that is revealed through new courses and documentaries. One such is an explanation of the great flood in Noah's day and just what was happening. Some believe that discussing real-world evidence takes God out of the equation. Of course, that is not true in the least. Evidence, such as what is presented in this particular article, proves the validity of God in the Bible. At the same time, ignoring evidence left behind by God for our edification only helps the secular world deceive and bury biblical truth with their own uncontested version of history. Now, the facts are that all the events in the Bible took place by the will of God. At the same time, we also understand that throughout the Old Testament, there are countless examples of God using human armies, leaders, and natural disasters to carry out his will. The Great Flood is no different. And the fact that evidence does indeed exist that explains this event just may be proof that someone out there needs to revisit the Bible with an open heart. You see, the Bible appears to indicate that several of the approaching end times events will be similar to those in Noah's day. Matthew chapter 24, verse 37 says it, "As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be with the coming of the Son of Man." Perhaps the most significant event in Noah's day was that which caused the destruction of the entire world by water, commonly referred to as Noah's flood. For centuries, churches have taught that it rained for 40 days and nights, and by some miracle this was able to flood the entire earth over the highest mountains. The problem is scientific research claims that the math doesn't add up, making this event nothing more than an ancient myth. But the truth, and shocking as it might be even to Christians, is that the Bible clearly states that rain was not the primary reason for flooding. In fact, the scripture states that on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst open, Genesis 7, verse 11. And based on recent scientific discoveries, no longer is it believed that the great flood is a matter of pure faith. Scientists have found that the direct cause was something called a geographical pole shift, which occurred thousands of years ago. Geographic shifts are ones in which the entire planet is suddenly and dramatically moved from its axis, causing untold devastation on Earth's surface. Of course, the Old Testament doesn't use the modern-day term pole shift when describing the Great Flood. However, it does provide enough detail about the Earth before, during, and after the event to demonstrate to us that something called an axial pole shift did indeed occur. The research into this was conducted by Brent Miller at Ingenuity Films, LLC. It reports, firstly, we are told in Genesis chapter 2, verse 6, that in the early days of man, it never rained upon the earth, and that the entire surface was watered from the mist upon it. During this period before the flood, there were no seasons, no storms. The entire planet would have existed at a temperate equilibrium with tropical vegetation, including at what we would call our current north and south poles. In fact, petrified tropical trees have been recently discovered under the ice in the Antarctica, proving this concept. Scientifically, the only way to achieve this temperate paradise would be if the geographic axis of the Earth was parallel to that of the Sun, or in other words, at 0 degrees. Genesis then clearly states that after the flood, for the first time, there was a rainbow seen by Noah in the sky, Genesis 9:13, which was only now possible since precipitation never fell from the heavens, causing the light refraction necessary for a rainbow. Now, scientists tell us that today the Earth's axis sits at 23.5 degrees, which creates frozen poles, seasons, rain, violent storms, as the uneven heating and freezing of the planet creates weather systems. But if you back up and address exactly what the fountains of the deep explained in Genesis were and how it was able to flood the entire planet in such a short time period, you start to understand things a little bit. You see, the oceans make up about 71% of the Earth's surface. Basic physics models show how the flood could have been caused by a shift in centripetal force and angular momentum exerted upon the oceans resulting from this actual pole shift. But what about those fountains of the deep which were broken up? Genesis chapter 7, verse 11. It appears that the mantle of the earth was broken into giant pieces. Today we call them plates. You know, those plates that move into and under neighboring plates, releasing tremendous energy. We call them earthquakes. Plates that trapped tremendous water supplies, now being released upwards. Water rushing up and water cascading down in tremendous quantities. All of which occurring during the days and weeks the pole shift was occurring before the Earth stabilized into a new axial position. Now we have no idea what mountain ranges existed, if any, except that once it was over, the water covered all the hills that were under the whole heavens. Genesis chapter 7, verse 19. It would also take very little shifting of the planet to destroy virtually all life on Earth. During the shift, the waters would rapidly and violently erode the surface of the planet as unprecedented amounts of deep water flowed back and forth, covering mountain ranges with the force of thousands of pounds per square inch. We are told that the waters covered the world for 150 days before they began to recede. During this time, most of the evidence for the existence of a population on this planet, including cities and roads, would have virtually been erased. Sites such as the Grand Canyon in the United States could have been formed by massive amounts of rushing ocean water in a matter of weeks or months, rather than over millions of years, as many geologists believe. This also explains why fossilized sea life and coral are found throughout the world's deserts, as well as on top of our highest mountain ranges. And this is only the beginning of the story. We'll look at it a little bit closer at the end of this program on a video that I've entitled God's Hand, Seen in All Things. If